The Russian president says his U.S. counterpart, Donald Trump, did not share any secrets with Russian officials during last week's meeting in Washington.
We are seeing how political schizophrenia is developing in the U.S. There is no other way in which I could explain these accusations against the president about sharing some secrets with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. And by the way, I have already spoken with Lavrov about this today, and we will have to tell him off because he hasn't shared these secrets with us, either with me or with the representatives of Russian special services.
Putin made the remarks at a news conference alongside visiting Italian Prime Minister Paolo Gentiloni in the Black Sea resort of Sochi. The Russian president suggested that Moscow share the transcript of last week's talks between Trump and Lavrov with U.S. Congress. Two U.S. officials said on Monday that Trump had disclosed highly classified information to Lavrov about a planned Daesh operation. Moscow has repeatedly said that anti-Russian politicians in the United States are using groundless fears of closer ties with Moscow to sabotage any rapprochement.
If there's one thing that unifies Israelis across a political spectrum, it's the Iranian nuclear threat. Even opposition leader Isaac Herzog has said that there's no daylight between him and Prime Minister Netanyahu when it comes to Iran. And the latest disclosure from the U.S. Director of National Intelligence Daniel Coats is cause for concern. Coats has just announced to Congress that Iran is making great strides in developing intercontinental ballistic missiles that could deliver nuclear weapons over huge distances. Iranian military leaders are claiming their missile work has nothing to do with the nuclear agreement, but the U.S. intelligence community's judgment is that ballistic missiles would be Iran's chosen method for delivering nuclear weapons. The intelligence community is also concerned that Iran might use intercontinental ballistic missiles as a deterrent to the U.S. Iran claims to have successfully tested a missile with a range of 2,000 kilometers, which would be enough to strike Israel. The CJPOA that former President Barack Obama signed does not prohibit Iran from developing ballistic missiles.
The United States has reportedly extended sanctions relief for Iran under the nuclear deal made 2 years ago, but it also imposed some new penalties related to Iran's ballistic missile program. Experts say the moves appear aimed at cutting off any impression that Trump might be taking a soft approach to Iran. The U.S. brands Iran a state sponsor of terrorism, saying the country is destabilizing the Middle East.
After a campaign that has grown increasingly heated between Iran's leading political forces, opinion polls suggest the outcome is too close to call.
Well, these people are streaming out now in their tens of thousands after the final campaign rally here in Tehran of the conservative establishment candidate, the former Attorney General Ibrahim Raisi. Tehran's conservative mayor dropped out of the race, offering Mr. Raisi his support and allowing so-called hardliners to coalesce behind their preferred candidate against the moderate reformist incumbent, Hassan Rouhani.
The election has become a two-horse race, with Rouhani's vice president Ishaq Jahangiri, a former candidate, also dropping out, endorsing his boss and allowing reformists to similarly fall in line behind Rouhani. Friday's presidential election is the first since 2015's landmark nuclear agreement, under which Tehran pledged to roll back its nuclear program in exchange for the removal of sanctions. The election is seen in part as a test of Iran's economic progress under Rouhani since then.
Earlier this week, the U.S. State Department released a report claiming that the government of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad has been carrying out the mass killings. It's believed that about 50 detainees are being hanged at Saidnaya military prison every day, and their corpses are then being burned. Israel is outraged, and many opposition ministers like Yesh Atid party leader Yair Lapid are drawing parallels between the world's failure to protect Jews during the Holocaust. Interior Minister Aryeh Deri is supporting the move, but is urging the United States to take care of the problem for having made the allegations in the first place. Earlier on Tuesday, Housing and Construction Minister Yoav Gallant called for Syrian leader Assad to be assassinated, accusing the president of carrying out a genocide against his own people.
This is the Joint Security Area. It's one place along the Korean Demilitarized Zone, or DMZ, where South Korean and DPRK soldiers come face to face. The thin strip of concrete running between these buildings is the border. The demilitarized zone is almost 250 kilometers long, 4 kilometers wide, except for here, and despite its name, one of the most militarized borders in the world, and of course, a flashpoint for any potential conflict on the Korean peninsula. These soldiers can't speak on record to the media, but we're told tensions have eased since a fortnight ago when there was even talk of war. Nearby, the DPRK town of Kijung is clearly visible. At 160 meters, that is the 4th largest flagpole in the world, and we're told the flag weighs 275 kilos. This area has been off limits to regular visitors for the past 2 years, since DPRK troops secretly laid landmines, resulting in serious injuries to 2 South Korean soldiers. Nearby is one of 4 uncovered DPRK tunnels. Officials believe there could be up to 20 more still undiscovered. This tunnel goes to about 75 meters in depth, and it's more than 1.5 kilometers long. It was designed for infiltration, but given its width, it's estimated that about 20,000 troops could pass through here each hour. All that's passing through here today are tourists, still arriving in droves, saying they are not bothered by the current tensions.
I've really enjoyed the tour right now. I had a lot of good time inside the tunnel. I had a great time. This doesn't feel like war at all.
Hong Seok-hyun, South Korean President Moon Jae-in's special emissary to the U.S., traveled to the White House on Wednesday to meet with President Trump, where they held a discussion lasting for around 10 minutes. Hong delivered a personal letter from President Moon during the meeting, which was also attended by Vice President Mike Pence, Senior Advisor Jared Kushner, and National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster. According to the envoy, following the meeting, President Trump promised to work closely with President Moon to resolve the North Korean nuclear issue. He said Trump was also interested in achieving peace through dialogue with the North, although calling on sanctions for now to pressure Pyongyang.
Seattle wants to be ready if North Korea launched a nuclear attack. Seattle's got the largest stockpile of nukes in the world. It's sitting on roughly 1,300 nuclear warheads. The city is also home to tech giants Amazon, Boeing, and Microsoft. That makes it a prime target. Now, there's a law on the books in Washington state that prevents planning for a nuclear attack. It allows for evacuation plans for every disaster scenario except a nuclear bomb. There's now a bill in the works to change that. The state's top emergency planner says the law is not a big deal. Now, military experts say North Korea is about 3 years away from actually being able to hit the West Coast with a nuke.
A group of hackers claim they've got details for the nuclear programs of several countries and they're ready to sell them off. The threats come in the wake of last week's ransomware attack by another group that crippled government computer systems around the world.
At the end of the day, it's the people who are pushing the buttons, but then ultimately the computers are controlling and operating those nuclear power plants, those missiles that carry nuclear warheads. And the question is, what happens if all these systems get hacked into and then the tools to do this get into the wrong hands? Well, if the online statement by the shadow brokers is real and if the intentions are true, now they are ready to sell these kind of tools. So if you're ready to pay, you will be able to get hold of compromising network data from the nuclear and missile programs of Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea. So that is the scary and unpredictable bit. They're also saying that they have ways to steal central bank data in many countries, and they're saying that they're ready to do this every month. They came up with a term, monthly data dump. So they're going to sell batches of tech secrets to their subscribers monthly starting this June.
China has reportedly installed rocket launchers on a disputed reef in the South China Sea, offering another glimpse into its ongoing military buildup. China's state-run Defense Times reported on Wednesday that anti-Frogman rocket launcher defense systems on the Fiery Cross Reef in the Spratly Islands were capable of warding off Vietnamese military combat divers. Beijing maintains that military construction on the islands is for defensive purposes only and that it can do what it likes on its own territory.
Search and rescue teams deployed after disaster strikes, a scenario all too familiar to Filipinos. Many of the first responders, soldiers. During the last 2 weeks, they've been honing their skills and learning new tricks from their American counterparts. in joint annual military exercises dubbed Balikatan, a Filipino word that literally means shoulder to shoulder. In recent years, joint military exercises between the Philippines and the United States have featured drills in venues facing the South China Sea at a time when geopolitical tensions in the region were highest. But this year, that component is gone, reflecting perhaps the warming of relations between China and the Philippines. In fact, earlier this month, the Philippines welcomed to its shore a Chinese Navy ship, with no less than President Rodrigo Duterte visiting and declaring he's open to having joint military drills with China in Philippine waters. On the contrary, he's threatened to end exercises with the U.S. military, a threat that's remained only a threat, even though this year's Balikatan is smaller and less provocative, according to these protesters.
He has been strong in his words against the United States, but we have yet to see how this will translate into policies, how this will translate into programs, especially with the new president of the United States coming to the Philippines in November.
China-made armed helicopter known as Z-19E has taken its maiden flight in the capital of northeast China's Heilongjiang province. The helicopter can accommodate 2 crew members. The crash-proof seats are equipped with bulletproof armor. The oil tank is also crash-proof and designed to seal itself off once attacked. Despite its small body, the model can be equipped with a mix of weapons, including air-to-ground guided missiles, air-to-air missiles, and rocket projectiles. This lets the helicopter provide offensive air support and destroy armored vehicles, including anti-tank missiles. It's said the Z-19 models may use stealth technology in the future. These helicopters are designed to be exported to other countries.
Workers in New Orleans took down a Confederate monument to General P.G.T. Beauregard early Wednesday. Onlookers watched from lawn chairs. Defiant statue supporters waved Confederate battle flags while opponents celebrated. It was the third of 4 such monuments to come down under a plan proposed by Mayor Mitch Landrieu and approved by the City Council more than a year ago. Work began soon after sundown, and news outlets showed the statue being lifted off its base shortly after 3 a.m.
The aftermath of a night of looting in San Cristobal, Venezuela. Hundreds of people burnt buses and ransacked shops and supermarkets. A trail of destruction that left more than products broken.
I feel so sad and helpless to see the country like this. Now I'm left without work because of these people, without shame, without scruples.
The state of Táchira in western Venezuela and its capital, opposition stronghold San Cristobal, have been engulfed by violence. Residents say criminals have taken advantage of ongoing protests against the Venezuelan government and that there have been robberies and murders in the town. Gangs also roam the roads leading to it, cutting off supplies of petrol and food. The unrest is increasing not just here, but nationwide, and with it, the death toll. Now more than 40 people have died. UN diplomats met in New York on Wednesday to discuss what to do.
Here is a very specific, very concrete issue which could, if things go wrong, descend into conflict, could descend into a threat to international peace and security. And so we need to act in whatever ways we can, starting with our discussion today.
Anarchists brought a new type of weapon to this march, a tube launching fireballs at the feet of riot police. That and the traditional Molotov cocktails caught police off guard after 2 hours of peaceful marching, and they did not give chase to the protesters. In fact, police staged their own separate protest against austerity, which has already bitten deeply into their salaries and pensions. There is a gathering anger against Syriza, which came to power promising to end austerity. Even leftists have turned against it. This man fought for the communists in Greece's civil war 70 years ago.
It's abundantly clear that they're serving the interests of capitalists. People need to rise up. Workers are the majority. They need to come down here. The only way we're going to resolve this is on the street, not in Parliament.
These kindergarten teachers say they've lost a third of their income over 8 years.
We've already suffered from austerity. These new measures will flatten us completely. We won't be able to eat or pay our bills. This year I'm paying €200 more in taxes than last year on less income. Maybe this is no worse than if we had gone back to the drachma.
Ukrainian and EU officials sign a long-awaited visa waiver deal. Ukrainians with biometric passports will now be able to enter EU countries without visas for up to 90 days.
Ukraine return to the European family. Ukraine say final farewell to the Soviet and Russian Empire.
The deal comes after years of negotiations and agreement on reforms.
After this positive decision, the relation between your country and the European Union will be easier. We want to work as European Parliament, as a European institution, for good solutions, also for the implementation of Minsk Agreement.
The visa waiver deal covers tourism and business trips for up to 90 days within any 180-day period.
According to the Associated Press, there is no need to schlep around wallets or locker keys in your Speedos at Universal Orlando Resort's new water park, opening later this month. Universal is debuting a new wristband that can pay for food, open lockers, trigger special effects, set spending limits on the kids, and most importantly, eliminate waiting in lines by sending alerts when it's your turn for a ride. Universal executives hope the Tapu Tapu wearable wristbands get rid of some of the hassle for visitors at the water park, which opens May 25th.
He is known as the godfather of GMOs. Dr. Robert Fraley, Monsanto's chief scientific officer, created genetically modified organisms in the late 90s, which now accounts for 80% of processed foods today. Now, after 20 years and many critics still questioning their safety, he says a new technology called gene editing may be a new solution to help ease consumers' worries.
Gene editing. So tell me, why did you guys make this move?
Well, gene editing is probably one of the most exciting new techniques in biology. You know, it's going to have applications for human health care, for agriculture, both in producing better crops and better livestock. It's a pretty exciting technology.
How does this differ from genetically modified organisms?
In the crop world, we use them to introduce a new gene into a crop. With gene editing, we don't have to put a new gene into the plant. What we're able to do is precisely modify a gene that's already existing in the plant, in the animal, or even in human healthcare applications.
Is gene editing a better option than GMOs?
I mean, GMOs have now been in the marketplace for over 20 years. Here in this country, over 90% of our large crop acres like corn and soybean and cotton use the technology. The beauty of gene editing is that I think it's a tool that we'll see a lot more involvement of universities and startup companies.
How soon will we see gene editing on the market?
What we're seeing is just a wave of these new products being tested and developed across the vegetable world, across the large row crops, but also across animal agriculture and healthcare.
A lot of consumers don't like GMOs. They look for non-GMO products. Do you think they'll be able to stomach gene editing type products a little bit better?
Yeah, I think there's a couple reasons why I see gene editing playing out differently than what we've seen with GMO. You know, once we got the regulatory approvals, and in the case of GMO from USDA, EPA, and FDA, we communicated to our customers, the farmers, about the benefit of GMOs.
A federal judge presiding over the Monsanto case has rejected an attempt by attorneys to access more information from retired EPA scientist Jess Rowland. Rowland is cited in thousands of claims from cancer patients. Manila Chan is following the story and has more on the details tonight. Manila?
Ed, so far, at least 700 lawsuits have been filed against Monsanto, coming from all over the country, citing their popular weed killer Roundup caused users non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. The allegations against the chemical giant range from altering scientific studies in order to cover up findings that glyphosate is a carcinogen, all the way to funding completely bogus scientific studies which concluded that glyphosate was overall less toxic than other weed killers. But the crux of the Monsanto problem has to do with the Environmental Protection Agency and allegations of collusion, between the government agency and this chemical giant. Now, the EPA, whose existence is supposed to serve the health of the environment and thereby human populations, this is a major blow for them, claims that high-ranking scientists and officials within the EPA had a rather cozy relationship with the heads of Monsanto, and strips away at a lot of the credibility from the already embattled department.
The deadly tornado outbreak in the heartland. New alerts have been posted at this hour, another difficult night ahead, and a state of emergency now declared in Wisconsin. More than 24 tornadoes reported, one tornado damaging homes in Barton County, Kansas. And these pictures coming into us tonight just stunning out of Wisconsin. Severe storms moving east, a brand new system building strength. ABC's Alex Perez tonight from the storm zone.
Tonight, a dangerous system on the move.
Tornado completely all the way on the ground.
The tornado outbreak beginning in Texas Tuesday afternoon. Twisters reported in 6 states. Our Clayton Sandell is in hard-hit Elk City, Oklahoma.
The twister slammed into this neighborhood right around dinner time. At least 100 homes here severely damaged or destroyed. One person was killed, but officials say early warnings helped save many lives.
Driving dangerous, too. This pickup hydroplaning on I-40 north of Eau Claire, Wisconsin, another twister making a direct hit.
The trailer court looks like it might have been leveled.
One killed and dozens injured. First responders hearing their cries for help.
They were pulling walls off of people and getting them out of their trailers.
Darla Rutledge was standing in her home when the walls collapsed on her.
Didn't have a chance to do nothing.
And David, hard to believe, but there were 10 homes on this block. This is all that's left. This area now bracing for another round of storms tonight.
Hi, baby.
Every day, Judy Obregon visits an area in Texas known as a dumping ground for dogs. She started 7 years ago and has rescued more than 300 animals since, like Mercy.
What's the matter?
Judy thought Mercy was dead when she saw her on the side of the road, but the pup recovered from multiple leg fractures and has since been adopted. Or Callie, who, when Judy was driving away from the dumping ground, took one look back before showering her rescuer with kisses. Judy says she never thought saving her first dog would lead to hundreds more. The dogs she finds are all put up for adoption and fostered through her nonprofit, the Abandoned Ones Animal Rescue, living out the organization's motto, "Every Animal Matters."